There are rare moments in politics when the conversation doesn't just shift, the entire landscape tilts. Sometimes the needle moves. Sometimes the board flips. And what just unfolded with the James Comey case belongs firmly in the second category. This wasn't a routine procedural setback. It was an earthquake. A decision that forced every strategist, every commentator, and every power player in Washington to hit pause and reassess what they thought they understood about the current administration strategy. A federal judge didn't simply toss an indictment because of a typo or a clerical error. Judge Cameron Curry detonated something far bigger, a ruling that reached deep into the mechanics of federal prosecutions and emerged with a conclusion that stunned both parties. The impact wasn't limited to the courtroom. It sent tremors straight through Washington's political machinery. To truly understand the magnitude of this moment, we have to start with the ruling itself. Judge Curry determined that Lindsay Halligan, the individual who presented the indictments against James Comey and Letitia James, lacked legal authority to do so, not because she was unqualified, not because she was incompetent, but because she wasn't confirmed by the Senate. Under federal law, that technicality isn't small. It's foundational. At first glance, many assumed this was a simple paperwork oversight, the kind of bureaucratic snag that might delay a case but wouldn't derail it completely. But once analysts dug deeper, it became clear that the consequences were far more severe. Any indictment she touched, any signature she placed, any grand jury proceeding she initiated, all of it became legally defective. That meant the entire indictment against Comey evaporated, not because the evidence collapsed, not because a jury weighed the facts, but because the official who delivered the case wasn't properly authorized. The ruling didn't say the case lacked merit. It said the messenger lacked credentials. But here's where things get even more interesting. The case was dismissed without prejudice. That's a powerful legal phrase. It means the government can refile the charges. They can represent the evidence to a grand jury. They can relaunch the entire prosecution, as long as the statute of limitations hasn't expired. And this is where the political drama intensifies. The Comey indictment was filed at the last possible moment, just before the 5-year statute of limitations on federal charges ran out. It was a buzzer beater, a sprint to meet the deadline. Now, with the indictment tossed out, the administration may no longer have the option to refile. The window might have closed permanently. If that's the case, James Comey could walk away untouched. Not because he proved innocence, but because the government ran out of time. That possibility, that a major federal case collapsed on a technicality, is already fueling outrage, celebration, conspiracy theories, and political spin in every direction. But while the Comey timeline is suffocatingly tight, Letitia James is in a very different position. Her case still has time left on the clock. The statute of limitations hasn't expired, meaning prosecutors can absolutely bring the case back. And this is where the role of Pam Bondi becomes crucial. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General confirmed by the Senate, has the authority Lindsay Halligan lacked. She can sign the indictment. She can take it to a grand jury. She can rebuild the case from scratch, legally airtight this time. And based on her public statements, she fully intends to do just that. When reporters confronted Bondi after the ruling, they expected a cautious, politically measured response, maybe a brief acknowledgement of the setback and a promise to review next steps. Instead, they got something far more forceful. Bondi declared that the administration would pursue every available legal remedy, including an immediate appeal. She called the alleged actions a betrayal of public trust, and she made it crystal clear that the fight wasn't over, not even close. Her tone wasn't defensive. It wasn't apologetic. It was combative, assertive, and unmistakably strategic. She reframed the dismissal not as a defeat, but as a procedural delay, a technical intermission, not a final ruling. And that language shifted the political narrative almost instantly. Earlier that morning, Democrats were celebrating. Media commentators were calling the ruling proof that Trump's administration had overreached. Analysts framed it as evidence of weaponization of the Justice Department. Headlines suggested the prosecution had collapsed in embarrassing fashion. But Bondi's response changed the mood. Suddenly, the story wasn't about failure. It was about persistence, determination, a relentless administration, refusing to back down even when faced with legal obstacles. The narrative flipped from overreach to resilience, from misstep to reloading. Then came the moment that amplified this shift nationally. Caroline Leavitt, speaking for the administration at a press briefing, was pressed repeatedly by reporters trying to extract any sign of weakness. Was the president shaken? Was the administration reconsidering its approach? Was this a sign of internal doubt? Leavitt shut all of that down sharply. She defended Halligan's qualifications, insisted the appointment was legally sound, and confirmed that the Department of Justice would appeal immediately. When one reporter pushed too hard, Leavitt snapped back, making it unequivocally clear the administration was not retreating. That exchange spread across social media like wildfire. Clips circulated on both sides of the political divide. Supporters saw it as a bold stand against a hostile press. Critics saw it as aggressive spin. But either way, the administration succeeded in keeping the narrative focused on their resolve rather than the dismissal. Yet behind all of this legal theater, something else was happening quietly, deliberately. The administration was preparing to roll out a healthcare proposal. A politically dangerous issue for Republicans, and yet the timing was suspiciously precise, dropping healthcare discussions. Right in the middle of a high-profile legal controversy appeared designed to split the news cycle and control the narrative. Healthcare, of course, has been a Republican vulnerability for years. Democrats leverage fears around coverage loss, premium hikes, and pre-existing condition protections every election cycle. The Affordable Care Act, for all its flaws, covers millions of Americans. But according to insiders, Trump's team is crafting a plan that doesn't dismantle the ACA outright. Instead, they're discussing temporary extensions of certain subsidies, with added guardrails to tackle fraud and waste. It's a shift in tone, one that could neutralize a long-standing political weakness heading into the next election. When you put all these pieces together, the Comey timing crisis, the Letitia James refile strategy, Bondi's aggressive posture, the viral press briefing, and the precisely timed healthcare rollout, a larger pattern emerges. This isn't chaos, it's choreography. It's a chess match where every move is calculated to provoke, position, and ultimately protect the administration's long-term objectives. Democrats thought they had captured a major piece with the judge's ruling. They celebrated early. They declared victory. But within hours, the board shifted again. What looked like a win may turn out to be the first crack in a much larger legal and political wall, a wall the administration now seems determined to break through, not back away from. And if they follow through on Bondi's promise, this fight is nowhere near its conclusion. It's only entering the next round. Healthcare reform in America has always been a political battlefield, not just a policy challenge. And in this moment, the administration is trying to navigate that battlefield with a new strategy, one that doesn't attempt a total system overhaul, but instead aims to soften decades-old criticisms. The proposal being discussed isn't revolutionary, but politically it represents a calculated shift. It introduces subsidies for lower-income families, possible incentives for people currently paying nothing, and even health savings accounts for those in lower-tier plans. None of these ideas solve the crisis outright, but that's not the point. The real objective is to change the narrative, because politically this approach is smart. It neutralizes the most effective Democratic attack line. That Republicans want to take away health care from millions of Americans. By presenting reforms rather than repeals, the administration positions itself as constructive rather than destructive. It shows engagement, initiative, and a willingness to address a system that both parties admit is broken. And it gives Republican lawmakers something they've desperately needed: talking points they can take back home. The proposal hasn't been formally unveiled yet. Insiders say it was planned for release earlier in the month, but the sudden explosion of Comey-related news pushed everything to the background. That's the nature of Washington. Even the most significant policy shifts can get buried under breaking legal drama, but the existence of the framework is what matters. It signals direction, it shifts expectations, and in politics, perception often matters more than legislation. But healthcare wasn't the only story that dominated the political conversation. While analysts were dissecting the Comey ruling and strategists were whispering about the healthcare proposal, another issue began rising quietly and then erupted into national outrage. This issue didn't involve legal technicalities or policy frameworks. It struck directly at the emotional core of millions of Americans: the integrity of the SNAP program, widely known as food stamps. The SNAP program has long been a lifeline for families in need. But buried inside the administration's earlier legislative package and the so-called Big, Beautiful Bill were provisions tightening Eligibility standards. According to the Congressional Budget Office, nearly 90,000 people were expected to lose benefits each month because of these new rules. That number sent shockwaves across advocacy groups and communities already struggling with food insecurity. But almost immediately, another development complicated the conversation. Reports of massive fraud within SNAP. Not small, isolated incidents, but widespread misuse and systemic failures. And once again, Minnesota became the national epicenter of controversy. For the third time in recent memory, the state was caught in a scandal involving mismanagement of federal aid programs. Investigators discovered that Minnesota's SNAP system distributes nearly $70 million in benefits every month. Yet the computer systems determining eligibility had not undergone required security checks. That meant millions of dollars were flowing through a digital infrastructure that lacked proper safeguards. It was, as one auditor described it, an open door, and people walked right through it. The audits found that as much as 35% of certain enhanced benefit categories were going to phantom recipients, people who did not exist, who were not eligible, or who were double-dipping with duplicate identities. These were not simple mistakes. They were deliberate attempts to exploit the system. For taxpayers who work hard, follow the rules, and expect their contributions to help those genuinely in need. This kind of revelation hits deeply. It isn't just about financial waste, though the wasted money is staggering. It's about trust. It's about fairness. It's about whether the system is serving the right people and whether anyone is being held accountable. The Minnesota scandal instantly became a rallying point. Conservative media pointed to it as proof that reforms were urgently needed. Talk show hosts highlighted it as evidence of government incompetence, and political strategists recognized it as an opportunity, a chance to reinforce long-standing arguments about oversight, accountability, and responsible governance. But if the fraud numbers stirred anger, what came next lit a fire under millions of Americans. A local Minnesota news station interviewed a SNAP recipient whose attitude instantly made him the poster child for everything critics say is wrong with the welfare system. His name was Nelson Scott, and the now viral clip changed the tone of the national debate overnight. Scott is 38 years old, physically healthy, no disabilities, no dependents, no school enrollment, no job. Yet he had been receiving nearly $300 per month in SNAP benefits. When asked how he felt about losing eligibility under the new rules, his response was blunt and shocking. He complained that the government should hire felons, insisted he couldn't get a job unless employers bent their rules, and expressed frustration that his benefits were being cut. The entitlement in his tone, the refusal to acknowledge personal responsibility, it outraged millions who felt he was taking advantage of a system designed for genuine need. The clip went viral within hours. It circulated across social media, political forums, and cable networks. For conservatives, it became the perfect illustration of welfare abuse. For moderates, it sparked frustration about fairness. For Democrats, it created a political headache, because defending the status quo became nearly impossible when such examples were plastered everywhere. And the contrast was especially damning. While some refugees and immigrants, desperately seeking work, were being caught in eligibility cuts, individuals like Scott, fully capable but unwilling to work, were benefiting. It reinforced the perception that the system was upside down, helping the wrong people and punishing the right ones. With the Minnesota fraud scandal, Nelson Scott's viral moment, and the SNAP eligibility changes happening simultaneously, the administration suddenly found itself in possession of a powerful political weapon, a narrative that blended outrage, reform, and momentum. When you step back and connect the dots across all these seemingly separate stories, the Comey dismissal, Pam Bondi's aggressive response, the healthcare framework, the SNAP reforms, the fraud revelations, and the viral interview, a much bigger picture emerges. There is a clear pattern, a coordinated strategy, a political machine that knows how to convert setbacks into advantages. Democrats celebrated the Comey dismissal as a victory. They believed they had cornered the administration legally and politically. But before their celebration could fully materialize, the narrative shifted. Bondi reframed the ruling as temporary. She declared the fight far from over. She promised appeals, refilings, and renewed pressure. Overnight, the story changed from Trump loses to Trump reloads. Simultaneously, the administration floated a health care proposal that made Republicans appear more moderate and reform-minded. For years, healthcare has been their weakest point. Now they suddenly had a constructive answer. It wasn't perfect, not even close, but it was something. And in politics, something is often all you need. Then the SNAP scandal broke open. Fraud, waste, abuse, viral outrage. The kind of story that grabs voters emotionally and refuses to let go. And just like that, Democrats found themselves off balance, stuck defending programs that appeared broken while the administration pushed a narrative of accountability. This convergence of storylines isn't accidental. It reflects a political operation that has studied past mistakes and learned from them. This time, they are shaping events instead of reacting to them. They are defining the narrative faster, louder, and more effectively than their opponents. They are controlling the battlefield. And Democrats, caught between celebrating court victories and explaining away welfare abuses, are struggling to maintain their footing. They are trying to support vulnerable populations while distancing themselves from individuals like Scott. They are trying to criticize healthcare reforms while acknowledging voters want change. Momentum has shifted, tone has shifted, and political gravity seems to be pulling everything in one direction. But that doesn't mean the administration's path is smooth. There are risks everywhere. The Comey case may truly be dead because of the statute of limitations. Healthcare reform could alienate key Republican blocs. SNAP cuts might harm people who genuinely need help. These issues are complex and volatile. Still, what we're witnessing is a demonstration of how narrative control can transform political landscapes, how setbacks can become springboards, how opponents can be forced onto defense while one side dictates the terms of debate. It is, whether admired or criticized, undeniably effective. So now the question turns to you, the viewer, the analyst, the voter, because understanding these dynamics isn't just about politics. It's about recognizing how power operates. Do you believe Pam Bondi's appeal will succeed? Is the Comey case truly finished, or is there another twist coming? Will the Letitia James prosecution move forward with renewed force? Are SNAP reforms necessary course corrections or harmful overreactions? And most importantly, did Trump just outplay his opponents in a way that might reshape the next election? Drop your thoughts below. Like the video if this breakdown gave you clarity. And subscribe, because if this chapter was dramatic, the next one is going to be even more explosive.